Have you noticed something weird about your electricity bill lately? It's not just a little higher. It's like it climbs. Even when you swear you use the same lights, the same AC, the same routine. And here's the part that feels almost insulting. Nobody explains it in a way that makes sense. The bill shows numbers, fees, adjustments, and you're left thinking, wait, how did it jump again? But what if the real reason your bill keeps rising has less to do with your home and more to do with the system behind the wall, the part you never see? In the next minutes, I'm going to break this down in plain English. And I want you to watch closely, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. If you take a closer look at your last few electricity bills, you'll probably notice something subtle but consistent. It's not just the total that's going up. It's the breakdown. New charges appear, small adjustments are added, and different fees start stacking on top of each other. Things like fuel, adjustment, grid maintenance, peak demand surcharge, or environmental compliance costs. Individually, they don't look dramatic, but together they create a steady climb. Utility companies rarely double your rate overnight. That would trigger outrage. Instead, increases happen gradually, in small increments that feel almost harmless. $5 here, $10 there. A new fee that's labeled as temporary but quietly becomes permanent. Over time, your brain adapts to the higher number. What used to shock you last year now feels normal. And that's the pattern. It's not one massive spike. It's a controlled, continuous rise that slowly reshapes what you accept as normal. Now here's the uncomfortable part. Most people assume these increases are just inflation or higher fuel prices. And yes, those factors play a role. But they're not the whole story. The power grid in many countries is aging. Infrastructure that was built decades ago now requires constant maintenance and upgrades. At the same time, electricity demand keeps increasing. Think about how many devices you own today compared to 10 years ago. Smart TVs, streaming boxes, gaming consoles, home offices, electric vehicles, data centers supporting AI and cloud services. All of it runs on the same grid. When demand rises and infrastructure struggles to keep up, costs rise too. And those costs are passed down to consumers. Not in dramatic headlines, but in line items buried inside your bill. What makes this more frustrating is that there's very little transparency in how pricing structures are explained to the average household. Most people simply pay the bill and move on. And that's exactly why the system doesn't feel pressure to simplify or justify those increases in a way that truly empowers consumers. Meanwhile, the dependency stays the same. You still rely entirely on the grid, and the grid decides the price. Here's the part most people don't think about until it's too late. It's not just about higher bills, it's about dependence. Right now, your home depends entirely on a centralized power system. If that system raises prices, you pay. If it struggles under demand, you adjust. And if it fails, even temporarily, everything stops. We've already seen what happens during extreme weather events, grid overloads, or unexpected infrastructure failures. Entire neighborhoods lose power for hours, sometimes days. And when that happens, it's not just inconvenient. Refrigerators stop working. Medical devices shut down. Heating and cooling systems go silent. Businesses close. Work from home stops. Security systems go offline. And here's what makes this more concerning. The grid was never originally designed for the kind of demand we're putting on it today. Electric vehicles, AI data centers, smart homes, crypto mining operations. The pressure keeps growing. Modern life is more electrified than ever before. At the same time, energy policies shift, fuel sources change, and global instability affects supply chains. All of that creates volatility, and volatility almost always translates into cost increases and unpredictability. The uncomfortable truth is that most households have zero backup plan. They assume the system will always be stable, always affordable, always available. But stability isn't guaranteed. And when you rely entirely on something you can't control, you're exposed to whatever decisions are made above you. That's the real risk most people ignore. Not just rising bills, but total lack of control. What's interesting is that not everyone is just accepting this situation. In the last few years, a growing number of homeowners have started asking a different question. Instead of asking, why is my bill going up again? They're asking, how dependent do I really want to be? Not everyone can install massive solar systems. Not everyone wants to spend tens of thousands of dollars redesigning their home. And honestly, most people don't have the time to research complicated engineering solutions. But some people have started looking into smaller scale alternatives, ways to reduce at least part of their reliance on the grid, ways to create a layer of independence, even if it's not total independence. And here's the key shift. They're not necessarily trying to beat the power companies. They're trying to protect themselves from volatility. Because once you understand that prices can continue rising, once you understand that grid strain is real, once you understand how fragile centralized systems can be under pressure, it stops being about saving a few dollars. It becomes about control. Control over your home, control over your energy, control over your exposure to whatever happens next. There are actually some unconventional approaches out there that don't get much mainstream attention, and some of them are surprisingly practical for everyday households. I'll explain what I found in a moment, so I decided to dig deeper. I started researching alternative ways regular homeowners are trying to reduce their dependence on the grid without spending a fortune or installing industrial-level systems. And what I found was interesting. There are unconventional approaches that focus on generating small-scale supplemental energy in ways most people never hear about. Not massive solar farms, not complicated engineering setups, just practical concepts that aim to give you at least some level of autonomy. Now, I'm not saying this replaces your power company. I'm not saying it's a magic fix. And I'm definitely not saying it's for everyone. But if you're the kind of person who doesn't like feeling fully dependent on a system that keeps raising prices, if you'd rather understand your options instead of just accepting every increase, then it might be worth looking into. I left something in the first comment that explains this alternative approach in detail. It breaks down how it works and why some homeowners are taking it seriously. No pressure, just information. Because at the end of the day, the real risk isn't that your bill went up this month. It's that you have no backup if it keeps going up. And that part is completely up to you.